Martha was an 18-year-old girl who lived with her poor mother in a small village. They were very poor, and Martha's father was nowhere to be found. She had grown up without a father figure in her life, and it was just her and her mother struggling to make ends meet. She managed and finished her secondary school, and there was no money to further again. Every day, Martha would go with her mother to the farm to work for people. They would toil in the sun, planting and harvesting crops, and at the end of the day, they would be paid a little token of money. But the money was never enough to feed them properly, let alone do other things. Martha felt so bad about their condition. She hated the fact that they were poor and couldn't afford the basic things in life. She hated the fact that she couldn't further her education or learn any skills. Sometimes, she would wake up in the middle of the night, feeling so frustrated and helpless, and she would start shedding tears. "God, when will our situation end?" she would cry out. "When will we be able to live a better life?" But despite her tears and frustration, Martha strongly believed that one day, all their problems would end. She believed that God would send them a helper, someone who would lift them out of poverty and give them a better life. Martha held on to that hope, and it gave her the strength to keep going. Even in the midst of their struggles, she knew that as long as she had faith, anything was possible. Martha's mother, Elizabeth, was a selfish person. She would often encourage Martha to sleep around with men in the village so that they could get money for food. But Martha was a kind and gentle girl, and she would always refuse her mother's proposal. "Mother, I don't want to do that," Martha would say. "I want to keep myself for the man I will marry. I'm only 18, and I don't want to ruin my life." But Elizabeth would not listen. "If I didn't sleep around with men when I was your age, I wouldn't have been able to feed my mother," she would say. "You need to do whatever it takes to survive." Martha was shocked and disappointed by her mother's words. "So you're saying I should sleep around with men just to put food on the table?" she asked. Her voice shaking with anger, Elizabeth nodded. "Yes, that's what I'm saying." "It's not a big deal." Martha felt a wave of disgust wash over her. "I'm so disappointed in you, Mother," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I would rather remain poor and work on people's farms than sleep around with men." "I will never do that." Elizabeth's face turned red with anger. "I fed my mother through sleeping around with men," she shouted. "Is it because I'm now old?" Martha cut her off, her voice firm. "And that's how you gave birth to me without a father, isn't it? By sleeping around with men all over the village. I will never take the same path you took, Mother. I will never make the same mistake you made." Martha's words hung in the air, and for a moment, Elizabeth was silent. Then, Martha turned and stormed out of the room, leaving Elizabeth sitting alone in their small hut. Elizabeth sat in her chair, shaking her head. "What kind of child did I give birth to?" she muttered to herself. "She's so stubborn and foolish." That night, Martha sat alone in her bed, unable to sleep. She couldn't shake off the conversation she had with her mother earlier that day. Her mother's words kept echoing in her mind, and she felt a deep sadness and frustration. Why did I have to come from a lineage where no one has a father? Martha asked herself, tears streaming down her face. My grandmother was born without a father, my mother was born without a father, and I was born without a father too. And now, my mother wants me to follow in their footsteps and give birth to a child without a father? God forbid. I will never repeat the mistakes of my family. Martha's determination grew stronger as she thought about her situation. I have to bring a change to my family's name, she said to herself. I have to marry a good man and have children who will know their father's love. My children will not grow up without a father like I did. Martha's thoughts were interrupted by her own sobbing. She knelt down beside her bed and prayed to God, "Oh God, please do not let my mother convince me to do something I don't want to do. Give me a strong heart to overcome her and provide for us. I know we are poor, but I am okay with just having food on the table." As Martha prayed, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She wiped away her tears and lay down on her bed, finally feeling able to sleep. Despite the challenges she faced, Martha knew that she had the strength to overcome them and create a better life for herself and her future family. Elizabeth tried every trick in the book to convince Martha to sleep around with men. She would tell her that it was the only way to provide for their needs, that it was the only way to put food on the table. But Martha refused, completely and utterly. "I will never do that, Mother," Martha would say, her voice firm and resolute. "I will never sell my body to men just to make a living. There are other ways to earn money, and I will find them." Elizabeth's face would twist with anger and frustration whenever Martha refused her. She would start to find fault in everything Martha did, criticizing her for even the smallest things. Sometimes, she would shout at Martha, telling her that she was the one who had failed her own mother when she was alive. "You're so ungrateful, Martha," Elizabeth would say. "I did everything for my mother, and now it's your turn to do everything for me. But you're too stubborn and selfish to even consider it." Martha would try to explain to her mother that she couldn't do what Elizabeth had done, that she didn't want to repeat the same mistakes. But Elizabeth wouldn't listen. "I did what I had to do to survive," Elizabeth would say. "And now it's your turn to do the same. You're grown up now, Martha. It's time for you to take care of me." Martha would shake her head, feeling a deep sadness and frustration. "I will take care of you, Mother," she would say. "But I will not do it by selling my body to men. There are other ways to earn money, and I will find them." Elizabeth's face would darken with anger, and she would shout at Martha, "You're so stubborn and selfish. I'm your mother, and you should do what I say. If you don't, I'll disown you as my daughter." Martha would look at her mother, feeling a deep pain and sadness. "If you disown me, Mother," she would say, "then so be it. But you are not my God, and I will not do something that goes against my conscience just to please you. If you cause me, it will be in vain. Because my God has not caused me." Elizabeth's eyes would flash with anger, and she would raise her hand as if to strike Martha. But Martha would stand up to her, her eyes blazing with defiance. "You should ask yourself, Mother," she would say, "if I have not already disowned you as my mother. You don't talk to me like a mother should talk to her daughter. You don't treat me with love and respect." And with that, Martha would turn and walk away, leaving Elizabeth to seethe with anger and frustration. Elizabeth sat in the sitting room, talking to herself. "What kind of child is this?" she asked. "She didn't come from my generation. We slept with men to feed our mothers and make them look good. My mother did it, her mother did it, and her grandmother did it. Why is my daughter refusing to do the same thing for me?" Elizabeth thought for a moment, then said to herself, "Maybe I'm being too harsh on her. Maybe I need to call her and talk to her. Maybe she'll see reason." So, one evening, Elizabeth called Martha into the sitting room. "Martha, my dear daughter, please see reason in what I'm saying," Elizabeth said. "I'm not used to working so hard on the farm. I've been waiting for you to come of age so you can do what I did for my mother." Martha looked at her mother in shock. "Are you still talking about this, Mother?" she asked. "I want you to start sleeping with men so you can bring food to the table," Elizabeth said. "In my time, I slept with 2 or 3 men a day, and we lived happily together." Martha's eyes widened in surprise and shock. "How could you say such a thing to your own daughter?" she asked. "Do you expect me to become a prostitute? What are you trying to push me into? I'm your only daughter, for crying out loud. You should be praying for me to get married and have a good home, not for me to sleep around with men in the village." Elizabeth's face fell, but Martha continued. "If you can't do the farm work to feed us, then forget about me doing what you want me to do." "I won't do it, Mother. I won't disgrace myself and our family like that." Elizabeth's face turned red with anger. "You stubborn child," she shouted. "At your age, you're this stubborn? Why can't you just listen to me? Why can't you do what I ask you to do? Why are you trying to make my life so miserable?" Martha walked very close to her mother, looked into her eyes, and said, "Dear mother, all these years, all these generations, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and you have been sleeping around with men just to put food on the table. Apart from feeding your mother, what have you achieved?" Martha's voice was firm and clear. "I am the fourth generation in this family, and yet we are still living in a tarch house. Many people in the village are living in big mansions or nice bungalows. But we, who have been doing this for generations, are still living in poverty. Is it not time to think about this? Are we bringing poverty into this family?" Elizabeth's face fell, but Martha continued. "Why can't our family change for good? I am here to change this image for good. Not even your cries for food and material things will make me change my mind. I will never do what you did for your mother, what your mother did for your grandmother. I will hold myself tight until I get married." Martha's voice rose in anger. "I will never live the nonsense and useless life that you and your generation have lived. The only thing I see that you people have achieved is putting on expensive clothes. But you're still living in Tarch House. I will never do such a thing." With that, Martha angrily left the sitting room, leaving Elizabeth to ponder her words. One midnight, Elizabeth woke up and sat on her bed, thinking to herself, "What kind of stubborn child did I have? In my own time, I was never stubborn to my mother. That's how I slept with so many men and fed her." She thought for a moment, then said to herself, "Well, I know what I'll do. I'll go and collect money from men in the village and ask them to sleep with my daughter whenever they have the chance." The next morning, Elizabeth left the house and went to the village square. Any young man she came across, she would tell them to give her a little amount of money so that they could come to their house and sleep with her daughter. Some of the men were very happy to hear that and asked her what time Martha would be at home. Elizabeth would whisper into their ears, telling them to come at night, when Martha would be at home and her body would be ready for them. Elizabeth collected money from 3 young men whom she wanted to sleep with her daughter. She left the village square, very happy, and went to the market to buy some foodstuffs. She bought good food, including a big piece of meat, to cook for dinner. When Elizabeth came back home, she cooked the food and meat she had bought from the market with the money she had collected. Martha was very surprised to see her mother eating such a delicious meal. "Where did you get the money to prepare this meal, mother?" Martha asked, looking at her mother with suspicion. Elizabeth just smiled and said, "Don't worry about that, my dear. Just eat with me and enjoy the food." Martha refused to let the matter go, insisting that her mother tell her how she got the money to prepare such a delicious meal. "I hope you haven't done something stupid," Martha said, looking at her mother with concern. "Where on earth did you get the money to prepare this type of food? You're my mother, I'm your daughter, and I know the type of food we usually cook here. I know how much we usually manage in a day. How did you manage to get such a huge amount of money just to prepare a meal?" Elizabeth smiled and said, "Martha, my dear, just enjoy yourself. Within a short time, you'll know how I got the money." Martha was not satisfied with her mother's response. "I won't eat this food until you tell me how you got the money to prepare it," she said firmly. Elizabeth was shocked and looked at Martha with a mixture of anger and disappointment. "You're such an evil child," she said angrily. "So you want me to die before my time, right? If you don't want to eat, then don't. That's your business. All I know is that when the time comes, you'll pay for this meal." Martha was taken aback by her mother's words. "What did you mean by that?" she asked, looking at her mother with confusion and worry. Elizabeth just looked at Martha and abandoned her, starting to eat her food. Martha stood there, confused and worried, thinking about what her mother meant by her words. What did my mother mean by, when the time comes, you'll pay for the food? Martha thought to herself. She didn't understand why her mother was being so secretive and mysterious. Martha decided to distance herself from the meal and sat at the corner, looking at her mother as she enjoyed her food. I don't know what you're talking about, Martha said. I don't know how you got the money to cook this food. Just try to pay them back. I'm not included in this. As night approached, one of the men Elizabeth had collected money from arrived at their house. He asked Elizabeth, "Where is Martha, your daughter?" "It's my turn for her to pay me." Elizabeth pointed to Martha's room, telling him to go in and do whatever he wanted with her. "If she refuses to open up for you, force her," Elizabeth said. The young man nodded and said, "Okay, thank you for the direction." He went into Martha's room and knocked at the door. Martha opened the door, thinking it was her mother, and was surprised to see the young man. "What are you doing here?" Martha asked. The young man smiled and told Martha that he had paid her mother money earlier that day to sleep with her. Martha was shocked and said, "You paid my mother, so you should go and sleep with her, not me. Am I the one who collected the money from you?" The man tried to force himself on Martha, but she pushed him away and ran out of the house. The young man fell to the floor, wounded, and started shouting and crying. Elizabeth rushed into the room and saw the young man crying. "Try another day," she told him, but the young man was angry. He slapped Elizabeth, telling her that she didn't discuss the matter with her daughter before collecting the money. Elizabeth tried to defend herself, but the young man slapped her again and again. Elizabeth broke down into uncontrollable crying, saying, "Martha, my daughter, is such a wicked child." That night, Martha was roaming through the village, running until she came to a big town. She sat at the corner of a park and started crying, asking God why she had to come from a generation of prostitution and wickedness. "Why did you allow me to come from a family where my mother advises me to sleep around with men?" Martha cried out loud, tears streaming down her face. What kind of mother does that? Martha prayed to God, asking him to please send her a destiny helper. "I don't want to live the life my mother and grandmother and great-grandmother have lived," she said. "I want to be different. I want to bring change to my family and village." As Martha shed tears and cried, she eventually slept off at the park. The night was quiet, except for the occasional passing of cars and the distant sounds of the town. As the sun rose, Martha woke up from her sleep, yelling in exhaustion. She looked around, confused, having never been to the big city before. "How did I manage to get here?" she asked herself. "Did I run that far? Will I be able to find my way back home?" Tears started to fall from her eyes again, but she quickly wiped them away. "All this is just a mess," she said to herself. "I've left my home, and I don't even know how to return." Martha stood up and started roaming around the town, trying to find a way back to her house. As she walked, she came across a young man and said to him, "I'm tired and hungry. Can you please help me with some money so I can eat?" The young man looked at Martha with pity and asked her where she came from. Martha hesitated, saying her story was too long. "All I need right now is something to eat," she said. "I'm starving." The young man offered to give Martha food instead of money. "Come with me," he said. Martha agreed and got into the young man's car. He drove her to his home, where his maid served Martha food. After eating, the maid took Martha to the bathroom to take a bath and clean herself. After Martha finished taking her bath, she went back to the room where the maid was staying. "Please, do you work here?" Martha asked the maid. The maid replied, "Yes, I'm a household maid." Martha looked at her and asked, "Is there any other space for me to work and stay?" The maid was surprised and asked Martha, "I thought you were my boss guest. Why did you want to work with me?" Martha explained, "No, I'm not his guest. He just helped me out." The maid smiled and said, "Okay, maybe when the young man comes back, you can talk to him about working here." Martha thanked the maid and went back to her room. She lay on the bed, thinking about her situation. Not long after, the young man who had helped Martha on the road came back. Martha saw him sitting in the living room, watching TV. She immediately went to him and said, "Please, can I work for you as one of your workers?" The young man smiled and said, "I don't know you too well. I only picked you up from the road. I wasn't bothered about where you came from, so you can tell me about yourself and where you're from, and I can take you back to your family." Martha pleaded, "Please, sir, I don't want to go back to my village or my mother." The young man looked confused and asked, "Why don't you want to go back to your mother?" Martha sighed, bent down her head, and remained silent. The young man came close to Martha and gently said, "Please tell me why you don't want to go back to your mother. I'll help you, and I'll even give you a job." Martha's face lit up with joy, feeling relieved that the young man was willing to help her. "Sir, please," Martha began, "I don't want to go back to my mother because she wants me to sleep around with men to get money. We're poor, and I'm her only child." The young man's expression changed to one of shock and disgust. "What kind of mother does that?" he asked, his voice filled with empathy. Martha shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "My own mother is like that. She loves money and material things more than me." Martha took a deep breath and continued, "Please, sir, can you give me the job? I want to prove to my mother that I can make a living without sleeping with men." The young man's face softened, and he nodded. "Okay, no problem," he said. "But I want to promise you one thing: you won't work for me as one of my workers. You'll stay in my house, and I'll pay you every month. You won't have to do anything." Martha's eyes widened in surprise. "Sir, if that's not possible, how can I not work and still get paid?" she asked. The young man smiled and reassured her, "Don't worry, I promise to take care of you. Just feel comfortable and don't worry about anything." Martha knelt down and thanked the young man, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. After thanking him, Martha asked, "Please, sir, can I do some little house jobs? I don't want to stay idle." The young man smiled and said, "You have my permission. Do whatever makes you happy." Alex sat in the seat, stunned by Martha's story. "Wow, so girls like this still exist in this world," he thought to himself. Girls who know the value of their self-worth, girls who don't want to sell their bodies for money. He shook his head, amazed. What kind of mother would force her child to sleep with men to make money? Alex wondered. Is this story real? Is it even possible? He couldn't wrap his head around it. Alex decided that he wanted to help Martha, to protect her from her mother and the world. Maybe God sent me to be her guardian angel, he thought, smiling to himself. 2 weeks passed, and Martha settled into her new life with Alex and the household staff. Alex decided it was time to take Martha shopping for some new clothes. Martha was thrilled, selecting a few outfits and thanking Alex profusely. As they returned home, Martha thanked Alex again, saying, "You've accepted me as your own sister, and I'm so grateful." Alex smiled, saying it was nothing, that he was just happy to help. As Martha started dressing in her new clothes, she looked more beautiful than ever. Alex couldn't help but notice, and he started to feel a spark of attraction. He pushed the thought aside, thinking it was wrong to feel that way about someone he was supposed to be protecting. But as the days went by, Alex found himself admiring Martha more and more. He started to wish that God would bring them together, that they could be more than just guardian and ward. Back in the village, Elizabeth, Martha's mother, was struggling to make ends meet. She was worried about where her next meal would come from. She had grown tired and thin, her muscles weak from lack of food. Elizabeth wondered where her daughter was, the same daughter she had forced into prostitution to make money. She had thought that Martha would always be there to provide for her, but now she was gone. Meanwhile, in the town, Martha and Alex had become inseparable friends. Alex would take Martha to clubs and outings, and his friends would admire her beauty. They would ask Alex where he had found such a beautiful girl, and Alex would tell them that Martha was his sister and friend. Sometimes, Alex's friends would ask him to give them a chance to talk to Martha, but Alex would refuse. He had grown protective of Martha and didn't want anyone to hurt her. As time passed, Alex began to develop feelings for Martha. He couldn't help but notice how beautiful she was, and he loved her kind and gentle nature. One Sunday evening, Alex went to Martha's bedroom to discuss something with her. As they talked and laughed together, Alex found himself getting closer and closer to Martha. They started to have eye contact, and Alex could feel the chemistry between them. Martha, too, had started to develop feelings for Alex. She had grown to trust him and appreciate his kindness. As they sat together in her bedroom, Martha felt her heart beating faster and faster. The air was charged with tension as Alex and Martha sat together, their eyes locked on each other. It was clear that their friendship was about to take a new turn. Alex's confession had left Martha speechless. She couldn't believe that this handsome, young, and rich man was professing his love for her. She felt like she was on cloud nine. Alex took Martha's hands in his and pleaded with her to accept him. "Please, Martha, I promise to do everything for you. I'll take care of you and make you happy. I love you so much," he said, his eyes filled with sincerity. Martha's heart melted at Alex's words. She felt a deep connection with him, and she knew that she loved him too. She stood up and hugged him tightly, tears of joy streaming down her face. The two of them spent the next few days in bliss, enjoying each other's company and exploring the town. But Alex knew that he had to meet Martha's family, especially her mother. Martha was hesitant at first, telling Alex about her troubled past with her mother. She explained how her mother had forced her into prostitution, and how she had run away from home to escape. Alex listened attentively, his expression filled with empathy. When Martha finished speaking, he took her hands in his and said, "Martha, no matter what happened between you and your mother, she's still your mother. I want to meet her and help you both reconcile." Martha thought for a moment before nodding in agreement. "Okay, let's go see her in 2 days' time," she said, a mix of emotions on her face. Alex smiled and hugged Martha tightly. "I'll be right there with you, every step of the way," he promised. 2 days later they set off on their journey. Martha felt a sense of trepidation. What would her mother say to her? Would she even want to see her? As Alex and Martha arrived at her childhood home, Martha was shocked to see her mother, Elizabeth, looking frail and malnourished. She rushed to her mother's side, tears streaming down her face. "Mother, what happened? Why are you like this? Are you sick?" Martha asked, her voice trembling with concern. Elizabeth smiled weakly and said, "My dear daughter, thank God you remember me. I'm not sick, but I've been struggling to survive since you left. I've had to rely on my neighbors for food and support." Martha broke down in tears, feeling guilty for leaving her mother behind. But Elizabeth surprised her by saying, "Don't cry, Martha. You were right to leave. I was wrong to force you into prostitution. I'm sorry for what I did." Martha was taken aback by her mother's apology. She didn't know how to respond, so she just cried some more. Elizabeth then noticed Alex standing quietly in the background and asked Martha who he was. Martha explained that Alex was her boyfriend, and they were planning to settle down together. Elizabeth's face lit up with joy, and she welcomed Alex with open arms. "I'm so glad you found a good man, Martha. You deserve to be happy." Alex then suggested that Elizabeth come with them to the city and stay for a while. Elizabeth agreed, seeing it as an opportunity to start anew and enjoy the comforts of city life. 2 weeks after Elizabeth moved in with Martha and Alex, she called Martha into the sitting room for a heart-to-heart talk. "Martha, my dear daughter, I want to apologize again for forcing you into prostitution," Elizabeth said, her eyes filled with regret. "I was wrong to do that, and I realize now that it was a terrible mistake." Martha listened intently as her mother explained that their family had a history of unsuccessful marriages, which had led to a cycle of dependence on men for financial support. "I didn't want you to suffer the same fate, because marriage has never favored our generation, but I went about it the wrong way," Elizabeth said, shaking her head. "I should have let you make your own choices and find your own path." Martha smiled and took her mother's hand. "I forgave you a long time ago, Mother. And I'm glad we can talk about this now." Elizabeth smiled back, looking relieved. "This is a lesson to all mothers out there. Just because you didn't have a good experience with marriage doesn't mean you should deny your daughter the chance to find happiness. Let your daughter make her own choices and follow her own path." As they hugged, Elizabeth whispered, "I'm so grateful to have a second chance with you, Martha. And I'm thankful to Alex for loving and accepting you for who you are." 2 months later, Alex and Martha got married in a beautiful ceremony, surrounded by friends and family. Elizabeth beamed with pride as she watched her daughter exchange vows with the love of her life. The family lived happily ever after, grateful for the second chance they had been given to love and forgive each other.